this beer you are tasting today is made especially for this event, so it's not.
Thank you.
It's not for sale other places. This is something every brewer know. We are just making it. It's the yeast making the beer, and it's the yeast I will focus on today. Just a little bit history, because yeast have always been something we don't know much about. It was first in the 1860s, Louis Pasteur. He found out that it was actually the yeast who was fermenting. Before that, nobody actually knew that it was the yeast. I hope you understand my language. Normally I speak Norwegian, but just ask me if anything is unclear. Pasteur, he could conclude in 1879 that it was the yeast making alcohol. And this is also a bit of the German Reinheitsgebot. They didn't know it was the yeast, so they didn't have the yeast in that law. In 1883, any Danish people here, maybe? Yeah?
Thank you.
Emil Christian Hansen, he was looking at the yeast for Carlsberg, and he was the first ever who could isolate the yeast cells and actually store the yeast cells. So the first name of the yeast for beer brewing was named Saccharomyces carlsbergensis. And after a time, they changed the name to Saccharomyces pasteurianus, because it was the Louis Pasteur, same yeast. So they didn't want to say it was his yeast. We also have the Cerevisia yeast, which is ale yeast. The other one is lager yeast, which I will come back to. So the beer is made by water, malt, hops, and yeast. We in the brewing we have enzymes everywhere. Enzymes is the most important for all life. You find it everywhere. It's proteins that speed up the reactions, and all enzymes have one thing to do. We have it in malting and mashing. It's very important to, if you are using just barley, which is not malted, we don't have enough enzymes. We can't convert the starches into sugar, which will be the alcohol. And also in the fermentation, you can say that the yeast cell is like a bag of enzymes as well. Does a lot of things in the while fermenting. I don't have any pictures or nice stuff, but I got beer, so hope that's fine. Yeast is a part of the fungus kingdom. It's a single cell organism, 5 to 10 microns in size, which means that you have to have like 10-15 yeast cells before you actually can see it with your eye. You have, I like to talk about the yeast cell as a small community or a small city, maybe like Oslo. We have the cell center in the middle, where you can find the DNA, and that is the government. Around the city, you have a wall. So that's more like US. We have small factories inside the cell, working to make the fat for the cell membrane. And in the start, the cell needs a lot of oxygen to And what happens inside the cell is that the cell is making a lot of new identically cells, pushing them out. And when it's empty of oxygen, it's like the city are empty for bricks around the wall, and they need supply outside the city to make more the wall bigger. And that's where all the sugar comes in, and that's why actually the alcohol is made by the yeast. So first it's with air, with oxygen, just to reproduce, and then it's making alcohol. And as all living organisms, it's need nutrients to be good and do the job. Do you like the beer? Yeah.
Yes.
It's two different. The first one is with lager yeast. We have two different yeast main yeast strains, which is the lager yeast and the ale yeast. So these are to show the difference between both. The ale is more fruity and more taste. During the fermentation, the yeast make esters and alcohol. In the beer number 2, it's more esters than the beer number 1. Esters makes the kind of the banana, the spicy, delicious flavors. You have fusel alcohols. Try not to get much of that. We have diacetyl. In some beers you have a lot of diacetyl. That is the taste, the flavor which is like hermetic corn and stuff like that. Not very good actually, but we're also trying to get rid of that in the fermentation. The yeast is always making diacetyl. But during the fermentation, when we are raising the temperature at the end, then the yeast is kind of cleaning up itself and removing the diacetyl. So some brewery, if it tastes and feels like hermetic food, stuff like that, then it's because the brewery don't have a good way to do the diacetyl rest to raise the temperature. So they are not like letting the yeast do their own cleanup job. It's also make a lot of sulfur compounds, phenolic compounds, and that's also things we can regulate with the temperature and time. So the yeast strains I talked about, the ale and lager. We have we're making beer. We use like 250 different yeast strains. Each brewery usually have 2 or 3 yeast strains they are working on. We can harvest the yeast and use it many times. Some breweries are using the yeast like 2 or 3 times, some 10 times. I use the ale yeast maybe 100 times. And I have a microscope, I can take a look at it, I can see if it's clean, I can count the yeast cells. A lot of breweries don't use the time on that, using a lot of money, buying new yeast. And the yeast is also, in Belgium, everybody got their own house yeast, which are developing over time and makes that very special. We have all these Belgian breweries which actually use the same yeast strain, but when used in different breweries it changes over time and it's not the same. The beer is very different because of that, and they used it for a long time. So that's I think more breweries should keep an eye on the yeast. It's the most important thing. Without the yeast, you are making soda. So. In ale, we're using yeast strains in the pale ale and IPAs, which are very popular beers right now. Then we're looking for a clean taste. This is the beers where the hops are the superhero in the beer. The hops are the spices for the beer, making bitterness and balancing it. We have the yeast making it really fruity. The beer number 2, do you think that was fruity?
Yeah.
Leading question. That's the yeast I chose for this one is a Kölsch yeast, which actually is German yeast that they use in Köln, and they use this in Köln. Kölsch is the most sold beer, and they are very proud of it, and it's a regulated trademark. You can't call a beer Kölsch, but everybody does it. So my beer is I don't say Kölsch, I say it's like Kölsch. We have hybrid yeast, which actually that's funny because people don't know if it's ale or lager yeast. You can use it on both ways actually. The difference between ale and lager is that ale yeast are laying on the top of the beer during the fermentation the first days, and it ferments from the top. Of course, it's going all in the beer, and it likes high temperature, maybe 20 degrees. And the lager yeast falls down, starting slower to ferment. And we're using like 5-6 degrees, and it takes a long time. So for a huge brewery, lager is because all other things we are using, the hops and the malts, are very cheap in the lager. So for the big breweries, lager is not costing a lot to brew for them. But for a small brewery, lager is the most expensive because the time to ferment it, we could make 2 ales at the same time. So that's why, and of course we have to sell lager much cheaper. So all the small breweries are losing money on the lagers. So that's also why you see all the small breweries are making ales as well. A lot of people are telling that the ales are more are better beers, but yeah, you can make really fruity, really good beers, ales. But I think most breweries it's too expensive, but they don't tell you. They tell it's ale are better. So. And you have the phenolic yeast, which I like to use. It's the Belgium styles, which make a lot of esters, a lot of the same flavor compounds you find in banana, which your brain tells you this is the banana flavor. Makes a lot of that. In the right temperature, if you're raising the temperature high enough, then you can make with a Belgium yeast, you can make the beer taste like banana. It's really, really good. And the last one I can't drink, it's actually just all the other yeast strains they didn't put in somewhere else. It's an ale stream as well. And in the lager, we have the dry. We are looking for fermenting it really low to get just a little bit sweetness in, and really clean, like a pilsner, a Czechian pilsner or German pilsner. They always use a really dry, clean yeast, and the yeast are not making a lot of flavors to the beer. And also with full, that's more in the stronger lagers. which are a little bit more fruity. You can also have fruity lager yeast. The last one, this is the two main yeast we are using for brewing. But the last year, sour beers are getting more and more popular. Anyone like sour beers? Yeah. Nice. We have Brettanomyces. That's actually this. We have a lot of different Brett yeast, but this is wild yeast. The laboratories are selling these yeast strains, but the most cool thing to do is to use it directly from the nature. We're making apple cider. People are using the natural Brett from the apple skin often. If you are taking an apple which falls down from the tree, it's a lot of Brett in it. And throwing one of them inside a little batch, you can make a really, really, really funky beer. It can be really, really good, and it can be not so good. I've done both of that. There is one more here, which is not yeast, but bacteria. Lots of the sour beers today are also made from lactic acids. I have a beer the two next beer you will taste. It's not ready yet. Yeah, you can stop. The beer number 3 is with Brett. I'm not sure how much Brett it tastes, how funky it's now, because the Brett are using a long time to get rid of all the leftovers, to eat it and to make the funkiness. It will be funky, but if I forget it for 1 year, it will be a lot more funky. Maybe good and maybe. And the beer number 4 you will taste is made with lactic acids. So that's kettle sour. And then it's fermented after. And the last beer is also with passion fruit and chili. And the last beer is not the same as the other ones. The beer number 3, which is with Brett, is the same beer with Brett. Yeah, it's also, today we use like 250 different yeast strains. And we have to choose which yeast to choose. In these days, it's both the sour ale, the popular, and also the kveik yeast. Anyone heard about that? No. The kveik is a traditional Norwegian yeast strain, found in the farming brewing for a long time here in Norway. And the funny thing is that you can use it on very high temperature, and it ferments really, really fast, and it makes kind of a citrusy flavors, and it's really. 6 months ago, it was really special to make beer with kveik, but now every brewery are making with kveik now. So I'm not brewing with kveik now because everybody else. Yeah, I think that is. The last one was only about which beer you should taste. So when they are done, I think it will take a little bit.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah. I have a question about how different are wine yeasts and beer yeasts?
It's a lot of different wine yeast as well, but the wine yeast are often fermenting it lower, so it makes it often makes it left with more sugar in it. So less sugar than beer.
Okay.
So you can make a lot of breweries try to make beer with champagne yeast. That's if I want to make a super dry beer, I would maybe I could try using champagne yeast. That's.
And have you had any good results?
Yeah, it can be really good with champagne yeast for sure. So and it's a lot of it's different yeast as well, but they are most they're using many wine yeast are the natural yeast as well. So and they have different abilities.
You said that beer number 4 is going to be with passion fruit and chili.
Yeah.
Can you explain how that's included as an ingredient?